So the difference between what a major news publisher gets paid and what the rest of our sites that got scraped, even mine, I've had one for 30 years, the whole site was taken without permission. But the difference is 1 to 5 million a year. 20 publishers now have announced deals with OpenAI, mostly news publishers. People like Vox Media, News Corp, and the Associated Press. In fact, Vox calls it a strategic partnership where there's product, but there's also content coming from the news publisher. It's even said that News Corp's deal could be $250 million over 5 years, according to the Press Gazette. But where do we bring it back down to the rest of us? Now we're getting some idea of what it's worth. How can we sort of play in the game? Giving each other better data, giving each other technology. I can see how both sides in an OpenAI news publisher partnership would win. But we want to sort of give you 3 ideas how we're going to play this. I'm Declan Dunn. This is the AI Optimist, and we're talking about the human edge, AI copyright's creative threat. Because if we don't have creativity really encouraged, and we're only filling our chat GPTs with things that we read on the news, I mean, how average, middle, boring is that going to get? For example, OpenAI did a deal with Axios, the news publisher. So Axios gets access to ChatGPT to send them questions, and they get access to technology to develop it. And that is a great partnership. One side gives content, but they also are going to be using it in ways that will teach ChatGPT to be much better and to give better content to their visitors. Now, we can't do that specifically with creatives, but think about allowing the technology to be used by people who bring back value to the large language model. See, the stakes that are involved here are way beyond money. This is about craft. Keeping that original spark of human creativity, a little less Marvel comics with everybody in, a little more new voices coming in from the edges, because the edges is where the really new change, things that people don't first get, comes from. And if we put everything in the middle, And it comes down to 2 kind of simple questions. Who's the author and who owns the output? See, when an artist like Sarah Anderson in Anderson v. Stability AI does her life's work, and we just take that and scrape it and don't ask not just for permission, that turns it from not just compensation, but it's about control. That's her life's work. Shouldn't she have a say in where it goes, like Axios or News Corp? Or how about Mumsnet, which is a UK parents community with millions of posts? All of that was taken, and now they're in a lawsuit against OpenAI. Shouldn't they have the right to protect user-generated content, UGC, which means people that visit, share this? That's their community that they're trying to protect? These things do matter because in the end, you can make better deals and actually improve the large language models because it's not just about data, it's about how people use it, going back to people. When you're working with AI, who gets to call themselves the author? And this brings us back to that 1884 photographer, Napoleon Sarony. He was taking a picture of the famous poet, Oscar Wilde. You could compare him to like Kendrick Lamar. He was one of the most famous at the time. And he had this image and says, I want to copyright it. Well, cameras were brand new, like AI. They'd already done the printing press, right? That was the first wave of content copyright. Now they do the camera. And that camera turned around and the law said, wait a minute, that's a tool. And the way he set it up, the lighting, the things that go into making it a shot made it human. Could be a little like prompting, couldn't it? In fact, when I took those photos into Midjourney and I said, give me these 2 next to each other exactly as they are, as best I could, you can see the examples here. They're just duplicates that sort of look like it, but it wasn't able to follow my instruction, which is more a prompt thing. But look at what they did. They turned something unique into something like everything else. That's why creativity matters in AI. Because if we don't have the human element, we're going to get this pushing everything to the middle. See, AI is a probability soup of millions of influences. How do you trace that? How do you compensate it? And more importantly, who owns what comes out? Ownership is really where it gets this messy, because authorship is where it comes from. We can play around with that. Who was important? Was there human involvement? But ownership, that brings in all these different influences and doesn't even talk about the AI developers and the AI platforms that are really important to be able to create this. You can't just come in, you can't just come to my house and take what I created and walk out. That's what's blatantly being done because they say they can't pay for it. But now world opens, you're going to make $100 billion. Yeah, you got some money for content. Let's run 3 simulations. These are the 3 things I was talking about the earlier part I see is coming out. Number 1 is Shakespeare and Code. This really inspired me because Shakespeare's King Lear was never really put on till about the 1800s, a couple of hundred years after his death. They didn't get it when he was alive. And things like Zora Neale Hurston's work, like Their Eyes Were Watching God, which was published in the 30s, but because of various reasons, was ignored by the existing control structures. People are running things, running publishing. And now, with things opening up and scholars discovering her, this work goes further and further. We run into the same thing, that Shakespeare and Code. We may be losing some of the best things by just putting them in to an LLM and not rewarding the creator of it. Because creativity is a small percentage gain. It's like baseball. If you get a 1 in 3 hit in your creative career, that is great. It's very small and very few people get paid. But we have this technology to work with the creative. That's what I call Shakespeare and Code. And by the way, you want to talk about who's getting eliminated? Creative people called coders, engineers. Entry mid-level jobs are gone. So if we just sort of skip that over, just like Shakespeare and Code, and say, yeah, we don't worry about it, how are we going to bring up the next generation to actually create tech? Or is it really, are we just giving up to AI? That's a big assumption. Number 2, open canvas approach. Treat creativity like open source. Nurture, share, but allow that actually rises up in influence within these models, within our work, to be able to be rewarded based on the audience liking it. Because in the end, the real value of the work is what the audience sees, the reader sees, who sees something different from the other person. There's been an argument by Roland Barthes in a famous essay called The Death of an Author, that really authors aren't anything but collectors of cultural ideas and their own experience, but that the audience is the one that brings meaning. Well, he didn't say authors don't have meaning. The audience is central to the game. So if we're in an open canvas kind of thing, we want contribution, getting compensation. It doesn't have to be payment. It can be services. It can be tech. It can be brought into these communities where you share your creativity, your mindset, nurture this talent, grants, scholarships. Make this a positive thing, because the way they interact is going to make that thing smarter. They're going to show you things a bunch of people sitting in a room, especially just engineers, might not see, which is why you see so many bringing in diverse sort of people to work with them. But in the end, the audience is going to shape it if we let it. And that's where the creative comes in. And that's where the person who's on the edge, not in the center. Because this stuff that's really great doesn't come in the middle. It comes from places we don't expect. How can we encourage that? How can we not only compensate in a way, just give people a chance who really are doing well to find that as a career? Because if we lose just that, wow, just math and engineering, that's just half the world, a great half, but it's not the whole deal. And the last simulation, number 3, think different, just not like me. We're building AI from what's already popular, processed, proven, and we're risking missing what's coming, what we're inventing, what nobody even gets except somebody who's very young, and they're in a room and they see things that you and I don't understand. That's the beauty of evolving thought. And we're just going to put it in this middle soup of probability. Good challenge to AI is, what can you do to amplify and learn from the edge cases? Because that's what blows most models up. The edge cases are where creativity begins. See, it's not about creators versus AI engineers. It's about human creativity itself. We're looking at engineers who built vibrant open source communities, artists who shared work under Creative Commons. Neither side expected to get rich. They did this, but to have that knowledge used and then start $100 billion businesses without some gratitude to where it comes from, simply in sharing the technology, they're looking to be respected. And I'm looking at a culture that if we're all supposed to have all this time with AI, shouldn't we be fueling its intelligence with ours and growing together instead of this creators versus engineers? I think we're on the same page. That's what this whole year is about now. Copyright connects us. And all we're doing is, if we're going to take something, let's leave something behind for those that created it. Without creative humans, all of them, we're not building futures. We're just automating the past. We're going to start being like we use maps apps, and we don't even know how to use a map. And that's good. Or not. Maybe if we lose our creativity, we lose a little more than a sense of direction on a random road. Because the truth about creativity, if you don't encourage the edge, the people on the fringe who don't see, don't do, don't act, don't think like you, like me, like anyone, you miss something that's here to wake us up. Not because of the individual, but because they're expressing something we all share. Remember, the audience puts the meaning into the content. That's what AI is tracking and tracing. And we can connect that to the sources. If we do this smartly and encouraging creativity, it is a source of really good data and really good updating and refining of data. Because if you lose that edge, you lose out on a lot. You lose showing us what could be, not just what was or what's popular now. What we're going to be like, living in a content social media algorithm feeding us just what we want so we don't actually grow? Couldn't we do this technology a little bit better? The edge isn't just a boundary, it's the frontier of human creativity. And once you lose it, no amount of AI can bring it back. For the few who choose to be creative, because it's not a calling of many, it's hard and rarely gets compensated. It's good to nourish and nurture this. Not simply take what they create without reward. And I'm talking about going forward, because they've already taken everything we've created. And unless you're a news publisher with a lot of lawyers, I don't think you're going to get compensated. What can we do then? Let's stop trying to change it, because that one is out the door. Who's creating something you never could even imagine. The Teslas of our day, and I'm not talking about the car. The inventors, the writers, the people who create those movies that aren't just Marvel rehashing of the same characters, but are like the old Marvel comics where each one mattered. Because those comics came out of that kind of soup, of having to be there consistently for years, and all of a sudden, people are like, Stan Lee's amazing. We lose that if it all goes into some AI database. And over time, just becomes an image we can sort of create, like I created Napoleon Sarony and Oscar Wilde's photograph badly with Midjourney, because it was average. The edge isn't the boundary. The human edge is the source of creativity. Otherwise, we're just spinning the same tunes over and over again. It gets sort of dull. Do you really want 2025 on repeat, or are you ready to build something that we haven't even imagined yet? Because as much as AI can do this, is it going to imagine a better future for us? Or are we just sort of letting it so that a bunch of people in control of what we're doing do whatever they want to do? Abre los ojos, as the film said, open